Saquon Barkley had some news on Najee Harris. He was the last running back to get paid, signed a 3-year, $37 million deal, I believe, $33 million deal, somewhere in that ballpark. He said, oh, I actually lost the story here. I'm bringing it back up. I clicked on the wrong story. He was on the New Heights podcast the other day. He said, quote, "That's our goal. You want to get that second contract. I feel like where I got, it's now Bijan Robinson, Jahmyr Gibbs, Najee Harris. You boys go beat me. I'm a competitor. I'm trying to go out this year, especially with the situation I'm in now. I'm trying to be the best running back. No question about it. But let's push each other. Let's all drive." It seems like Najee's going to be the next guy to hit the market that people are going to talk about whether or not he should get a deal. The Pittsburgh Steelers have kind of curved the question every time they've been asked about it, about a fifth-year option. Are they going to pick it up? Omar Khan keeps saying they have until May 2nd. They're going to take until May 2nd. At this point, 3,000-yard seasons. You look at Najee, productive guy, dealt with a little bit of a knee injury last year, but was still available at all times. Do you think that they're going to pick up the fifth-year option? Do you get that vibe? And is he worth the fifth-year option for the Pittsburgh Steelers?
Yeah, so I'll be honest, I didn't know what Najee's fifth-year option number, like how much money they would have to pay him off the top of my head before I looked it up while I was like putting together my notes for today. It's less than $7 million. It's like in my head, it was north of 10. Like it was, something absurd that they wouldn't want to pick up at all. In my mind, it's 6.8 when you round up, technically $6.8 million. That seems like a no-brainer to me. I kind of don't get why the Steelers wouldn't be comfortable paying that money. I mean, this is a guy who has produced as just as much, if not more, than most of the elite running backs in the NFL. I get it. There are going to be people to pay down the road. There are contract situations you got to work out. Najee is one of, if not the most important people to this offense, especially the new offensive system that they're going to put in place and the way they're going to run the ball. I think he's worth this, probably a little bit more than that. But if that fifth-year option number is your number, I don't know why you wouldn't pick that up. That said, the fact that they're balking at it is really odd to me. It makes it seem like, to me, that they are not eager, they're not inclined to pick it up. And I don't really know what would change between now and May 2nd, that would make the Steelers feel any different. It just feels like something that if you wanted to do it, you would have done it already.
Yeah. I kind of agree. Like when Omar kept curving it the first time in Indy, I was like, okay, it's early, but I didn't get a good vibe. Then I asked about it at the meetings, and he curved it again and said, hey, we're still trying to figure that out. Kind of feels like he should have already had that figured out. That's a very easy decision. Are we going to pick it up? Or are we not going to pick it up? I mean, $7 million, $6.8 million, not expensive. I think the problem is, and this is where this is where this all comes into place. Where is the running back market going to be for Najee in a year? Because in a year from now, is he going to be, the wear and tear? Is it going to build up to the point where he's not going to be worth $10 million a season? Because the running back market, yeah, it took a step forward. Great for Saquon. I believe Josh Jacobs got a good deal as well. You look at these guys and you say the trend has switched, but is it going to switch forever? Or are these guys just big time names that get big time contracts? And is Najee kind of in the same boat? Like, I think Najee's worth $6.8 million. I don't think that that's a question. Like, that's an easy pickup for the Steelers. Doesn't take much cap space. You could fill that, I mean, without almost any effort. Where does it go with Jaylen Warren? Does Jaylen Warren factor into this? Because you're going to have to pay him at the end of the season too, and right now he's making less than $1 million a year. So, are you gonna pay him a couple $1 million as well? Then you got $12+ million under your books. Are you looking at it like we got to take care of Jaylen first before Najee, which I think could be a factor in this thing? I don't know. I kind of view it as the Steelers are trying to figure out all their questions about the running back position right now, and I think that worries them to the point where they're not comfortable taking it at this time, if that makes sense. I just think that they look at it and they say there's too many questions maybe to pick that up. I think if they don't pick it up, is he worth, next year, does he get a $10 million contract? Does somebody come out here and offer him and steal him away from the Steelers, or you think they could get him for roughly the same money?
Well, I think someone would, to be quite honest. And I mean, I'm projecting out throughout this season, and I'm thinking Najee's going to have a pretty decent year. I think Jalen's going to
Yeah.
have a pretty decent year. So I expect them both to kind of increase their value, and that's why I kind of think locking up Najee for this number right now is the more important thing. Like next year's decisions are next year's decisions, quite honestly. And if you want to move on from Najee, I feel like if he has the type of year that I'm expecting him to have, that I think he should have, that I would really expect him to have, he's going to have trade value. So if you want to get rid of him, if you don't like, that if you don't want to pay him, then you can ship him off next year with a pretty affordable price tag on him. But and the same goes for Jalen. Like you can see what Jalen does this year. You can kind of project out like, oh, does Jalen look like he can carry the load of a full time starter? Are we going to get rid of Najee? Is Najee going to be here in 2025? Like these are all decisions that you can make further down the line. But I think you afford yourself more time if you pick up this 5th year option now. I think if your problem, if you're the Steelers, is we need to answer some more questions. Well, no questions are going to get answered before the season starts, before even training camp starts. So
Yeah.
I would at least buy yourself some more time by picking up this 5th year option, and I would worry about next year when the time comes, or at least later down the road. I don't think that's a problem that you need to worry about right now.
Yeah, yeah, I kind of see that. Like, you're not going to get him for less money if you do trade it. He will hold value, which I get that. And at that point, like a $6-7 million running back, you could ship him. You don't need anything. You're not going to look at it and say, "Oh, well, we need a first round pick. We need a second round pick for Najee Harris." No, just give me a fourth. That's totally fine. We're just looking to ditch the contract at that point and move on somewhere else. I think the NFL draft can make this very interesting. I think if you look at the NFL draft and the Steelers add a running back in the middle of this draft or even late. I mean, they brought in who's the dude from Washington, Dylan Johnson.
Yeah.
That if they're looking at a running back and they decide, hey, like that's an option for us, and they add one and they kind of like who they add, I could see them avoiding the situation. I just think you're taking a risk either way. Like you're taking a risk that a guy like Najee Harris, who his body was a little bit beat up last season, we saw that, and you're saying, hey, he's going to be fine again with another workload, even though and a better offensive line, a better offensive system, and hopefully Jaylen Warren becomes it's more of a 50-50 split, and Jaylen Warren takes a lot of that pressure off of Najee Harris, where you could look at him and say, is he going to be worth $7 million a year from now because his body is going to take another year of beatings? I think that's a big question, but at the other side of that, like in an Arthur Smith offense where you don't have quarterbacks, especially after this season, are you willing to take a shot that you're like, okay, well, we did it. We built an offense for this year. It took a lot of work. We finally got it done. We just eliminated the two key pieces, our top running back and our quarterback, completely from the roster. I mean, you're leaving yourself out to dry at that point. So I agree. I think $6.8 million is doable. When it comes to if they're going to pick it up, I don't know. I don't get the vibe that they're going to. It kind of just, there's kind of a sense where it just feels like they'd be more optimistic about the situation. They've avoided 50-year contracts with guys that I thought they were going to pick up in the past, like Terrell Edmonds, excuse me, was one of them. He was a guy that I was almost positive they were going to pick it up. Devin Bush, I didn't see getting picked up, but I thought maybe that's an option because they, could see him kind of taking a step forward and they're hoping that he comes full circle. But they've avoided these in the past with players that were kind of like fringe guys, like right on the edge of worth it, not worth it. And I think Najee's worth it. I just think the running back position is a big giant question mark, but they will. I agree with you. They're going to lose him if they move on. And if I'm Najee Harris and you don't pick up my 5th-year option, I'm out too.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm also like, I don't know, like Najee's taken on this kind of workload for 3 years, and I get that like that all adds up, but like, man, he had one of his most explosive years last year, and that was while
True.
he was dealing with a knee injury, and that's while he had, what was it, like 700 touches, in his career going into the 2 year, maybe more than that.
Yeah.
I forget what the number was, but like this guy's taken a big workload before and come out even stronger. I get that the likelihood of that continuing diminishes as he gets older, but to be honest, not really some maybe it's naive, but I'm not really super concerned about that quite honestly until I actually see Najee decline because he's only gotten better over the course of his career. Like that's the thing.
That's true. That's true. You do look at it. You say he's built it up, and he's. I mean, look at. I'm a big Najee guy. I think Najee Harris is underrated for his value. I think you feel the same way. I think that Najee's a guy that people look at and try to say, oh, he's not that good. You should go with Jaylen Warren. But I think he fits very well for what the Steelers are trying to do, and he's reliable. I think Jaylen Warren and the hype around Jaylen Warren kind of makes that an iffy line. But I think he's worth it. I think if you could keep those two together for another year, at least another 2 years, you feel pretty good about it. And then from that moment, you know what I mean? Like you extend Jaylen for 2 years. And then if you don't like Najee with that 5th-year option, cool. You're giving Jaylen the workload from there, and you're going to see if you could build from there because he's going to be cheap. I think that the options are there, and the Steelers have to, at least consider it. But I just don't think, unless you feel differently, I don't think that they're going to do it.
No, I mean, like I said, if like nothing's going to change between now and May 1st or May 2nd. Like if you were going to do it, if you wanted to do it, why would you not do it now? I don't know.
Yeah, I agree. I look at it and say that they already have a plan. They're just waiting for it, and they're going to let time pass, and then we're going to talk to them before the draft, and they're going to, give us the same excuse. Oh, they have until May 2nd, and then they're not going to pick it up. And then we're going to be talking to them at OTAs, and we'll see what happens.
Probably get something good from Najee about that if they don't pick up his option.
Oh, 100% would definitely get something good from Najee. I would be very excited about what Najee has to say after not picking up a 5th year. You think he'd hold in? Do you think he'd be the next Steeler to hold in?
I don't know. That doesn't seem like. Maybe it does seem like a Najee move, but like I feel like Najee is the type of guy who would be like, okay, I'm just gonna go play and I'm gonna go dominate and I'm gonna show you guys why you were dumb to not pick up my 5th-year option.
Yeah, I kind of agree.
But he could also say, oh, cool, I'm gonna make this much more expensive for you guys to keep me around. Then
yes, I could see that too. Like they're just like, he's just like, nah, you know what? Like everybody else does it, I'm gonna do it too. And at that point, you're playing a dangerous game if you're Najee Harris and the Pittsburgh Steelers because you're fighting a battle that I don't think could be won. And you're just going to say, hey, we got you for one more rookie year. You got to play. It is what it is. And then they'll take it. If they're not picking up his 5th-year option, they're not franchise tagging him because that's going to be like $10+ million. I think it's a very strange situation that the Pittsburgh Steelers are going to put themselves in, it seems, because they're going to avoid that 5th-year option.